So let's talk about Suburbicon. So I just went to go see Suburbicon, the film which is quite misleading based on its trailers and promotional products. It's kind of the same thing that Mother did, but that's a whole other story. So directed by George Clooney, written by the Coen brothers and George Clooney, and I think some other dude, but that doesn't matter because it's Coen brothers. And basically, if I had to give my thoughts on it, I couldn't, because it's very strange, to say the least. I personally liked it so much, because I really did like it. Yeah, so if you check Rotten Tomatoes, if I'm not mistaken, it has like a 47%, or some god-awful number. So just looking at, the average moviegoer, I'm going to whip open IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or something like that, you're going to be turned away from this immediately, because it's like 4.7. I'm pretty damn sure about that on IMDb. So that's definitely going to kind of turn away the average viewer from wanting to watch this film. Then again, though, it does have kind of a, quirky, dark comedy, let's poke fun of, the 50s, kind of the peaceful, everything's alright kind of feeling. And it does have that, but it's Coen brothers, so it has kind of a bitter tinge to it. So basically the plot is, it's like beautiful, romantic 50s, everything is fine, Dallas is playing ball outside, Janet is cooking souffle, and Bobby's off at work. It's pretty much just disgusting white 50s, which is fun, really fun, because I haven't really seen a film that kind of does something like this, of not just 50s, but like, here, drink it in. And the only other film that I think would do that would be the Coen brothers' other film, A Serious Man. And that, again, people would look at it and be like, oh, that looks like a quirky, fun comedy, and they watch it and it's like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? Because basically, A Serious Man is just, the plot is there, a man struggles, with his faith and all that. But when you watch it, it's so much weirder, it's so much stranger. So, yeah, needless to say, people weren't a huge fan of it, and they were kind of like, oh, God. But it got much better reviews. Critically, audience-based, IMDb-based, so much better than Suburbicon did. And now, where those two films differ is Coen brothers direct. And that's, I think, the biggest fault I found with Suburbicon was George Clooney's directing. He's a fine director. He directed Ides of March and Goodnight, Good Luck. When you're dealing with a Coen brothers script, when you're dealing with something so unbelievably... Coen brothers, pretty much. The most titular form of the Coen brothers you can find, pretty much. It's really strange when they don't direct it. I can't remember the name of the film. It was one film that they wrote. It had Colin Firth in it. And it was just atrocious because the editing and the directing did not fit the perfect dialogue, the perfect characters, the perfect atmosphere, just that dynamic, because it was broken up by imprecise directing and imprecise editing. So basically, this film kind of, unfortunately, struggles a bit from that. George Clooney does a fine job. It looks very visually pleasing. The color is great, the cinematography is great, the shots are more or less perfect, but it does not quite have that rhythm that Coen brothers films have. They don't carry a scene out, they don't cut it short, it's not as precise. That's not the biggest fault I found with Suburbicon. The biggest fault I found with Suburbicon was it's really... it's gonna be hard not to go into spoilers here. When you watch the trailer, and when you read up on it, it's like, oh, it's gonna be like a super duper, like, hey Spud, did you get your homework done? Attaboy kind of mentality. And that's very much there, like I said, beautifully done, blah, 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 blah. But on top of that, it's like a home invasion movie, pretty much. It's like, I think the IMDb thing literally says, a shocking home invasion rattles a small town or something like that. And that's not what this film is in the slightest. It's much more bizarre than that. I did not make that comparison to Mother earlier either, and I'm not saying that both films are similar, but it starts off with a very simple idea of something terrifying, like you don't want people in your house. Same thing with Mother, you don't want people in your house. Yeah, so it's pretty much just anti-visitors, essentially. But where these films differ is, well, this film was watchable. Mother is really offensive. It's really, really, really offensive. It's not a home invasion movie, it's a existence invasion movie. It branches off and becomes something so much more. This film does that too, but much more smaller scale, much more contained, but that's not necessarily a good thing, because it's much more smaller scale, but that makes it more petty. It's kind of like if I had a play about, you know, a man who gets stuck at home, and then I just incorporated all this philosophy bullshit into it. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I just kind of, you know, threaded it together and said, ooh, look, you know, first off, it would be deemed as pretentious and unnecessary. Unnecessary, I might describe Suburbicon with, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Certainly not pretentious, because, again, George Clooney's directing, he knows what he's doing, under the guise of Coen brothers writing with, you know, Matt Damon, Julianne Moore, and Oscar Isaac, too, who did an absolutely fantastic job. I have a soft spot for Oscar Isaac. If you like Oscar Isaac, it's probably worth price of admission just there. But as I was saying, it basically not only has the home invasion thing, but it also has like social satire, which is kind of par for the course when, you know, you're looking at the 50s in a negative light. You know, the kind of the hey spud, did you get your homework done? No. You know, gonna go drink and be my wife kind of thing. But that's surface level. That is very surface level, and that's par for the course. Done well, but it feels like there's something you need a little bit more of that. So they said, okay, we'll introduce racism. So a black family moves in, nice family, but then everyone just goes apeshit and just kind of, you know, you would expect that from this kind of thing. But what it does differently, and I like, is it's builds naturally to, you know, just kind of, you know, Farmer John just kind of peeking over the fence, you know, stuff like that, and then it builds to more graphic racism, pretty much. And the problem with that is it's almost a catalyst for the home invasion plot to seem more intense than it actually is, because eventually, you know, people, you know, get surround the house, you know, make noise, you know, call them
names,
you know, wave the Confederate flag, stuff like that, and it's well done, and it's intense. But when you take a step back, you realize that whole thing is only there just to make the home invasion thing seem a little bit more intense and more, oh my, you know, this is happening alongside this. It works in Mother exceptionally well because that was the plot of, you know, unwelcomed people. That's the plot, but that's not really the plot of this at all. Basically what it is just, you know, Coen brothers kind of dark comedy, you know, kind of unfocused, kind of just poking fun of everybody, you know, everyone falls on their face kind of thing. It has very much of a Fargo feel to it. So basically, it has that dark comedy element to it, and it is a very funny film. I found Suburbicon to be quite funny. And as far as the acting goes, I want to mention this a little bit before I move more into the narrative of this. Matt Damon did a great job. He played kind of, you know, a person suffering from loss, all that stuff. That's great. Julianne Moore did a great job playing a batshit insane housewife. She was really fun. Julianne Moore's always great. She did a good job in that. Oscar Isaac plays kind of a by the books, but a little manipulative kind of businessman. Well, an insurance person, and he is great as always. He's so much fun to watch. He's an absolute delight. Not in it very much, but the parts that he is in are an absolute joy to watch. Yeah, so that's nothing on there. So far the technical and the acting is absolutely superb, and I personally like the script. As I said, bad use of, because you could have broken it up into 3 parts. You could have had the home invasion, the racism, and then the social satire. And I'm all for combining themes, you know. That's an admirable thing to do, and this film, for the most part, does that pretty well. For the most part, I will say. For the most part. But again, the whole racism thing is just to make the home invasion seem more intense, because it's essentially just like a back-end, pretty much. It's just like wallpaper. So they all need to be together to work, but then again, when you take them apart and study them more directly, you realize, well, this film's kind of pointless. And this is starting to make it sound like I don't like it. Objectively, it's probably not the best film. Well made, of course, but the script is just kind of meh. That being said, though, it's a very entertaining script. It has some pretty fun turns in it, and just kind of, because you know how it's going to shake down. It's going to shake down in kind of a house of cards about to collapse, and that's, you know, that's par for the course for 50s kind of thing. But much similar to Baby Driver, you know, you've seen the story before, but it doesn't matter because it takes a different turn, and you're along for the ride. You're sitting down, you don't care that you know how you think it's going to end up, but it's just that what unfolds, what happens, you already know how it's going to shake down, but it doesn't matter. What things that the characters do to get you to that point that's the film. And that's what's interesting about it. And this film does that pretty well. Well, not pretty well, it does it excellent. I stayed, and I loved it. So basically, if I had to break it down, I would say much more tighter script. Make the racism plot work together and not just as, you know, this so that the... Oh jeez, we're gonna have to cut that. If you've seen the trailer to Suburbicon, you have not seen the film. That's a given. I would say the trailer spoils one scene. If you haven't seen the trailer already, I would say don't. It's not a deal breaker, but one scene's outcome is kind of determined already because you see it in the trailer, pretty much. And if you've seen the film and you've seen the trailer, then you probably know what I'm talking about. That's pretty much it. That's all I got. I would probably, if I had to give it an arbitrary number out of 10, I'd probably give it an 8. Even that sounds a little too great. Probably 7, 7.5, but that doesn't mean anything. Numbers don't mean anything in this case. I'd probably give it a B. I recommend it. I highly recommend it. If you don't like Coen brother films, you would hate this film. If you don't like pointless films, you would hate this film. If you don't like, I would say disturbing, but that kind of falls under the Coen brothers comedy. It's different. So this is what I would say. If you liked Fargo, watch this movie. If you like just watching something different, watch that movie. If you liked Mother, watch this movie as soon as possible. Yeah, so basically just grab a friend who likes dark comedies, go watch it. I think you'll have fun, pretty much. Yeah, so that is my thoughts on Suburbicon, and of course, as usual, I'm not going to do a Mother review because that is so far behind that it doesn't matter anymore. And yeah.